It's Rocky Mountain Sasquatch. We received a disturbing aggressive Bigfoot encounter out of the Uinta Mountains in Utah. This area seems to be an epicenter of the largest concentrations of Sasquatch sightings in the entire state of Utah. We have done dozens of Bigfoot expeditions into that area because of that over the years, and so this brutal Sasquatch encounter with a couple of guys camping near the Provo River is of interest to our team. Dario writes our MSO. Hello, I'm Dario. Sorry if my English is not perfect. I watched a few videos of your channel days ago and I was thinking if I would really send this in or not. But I decided to do it, even if you mock me for not believing in it. I'm Mexican, born in 1976, currently living in Salt Lake City, Utah. But it wasn't always like that. When I moved to Utah in 1994, I lived in the town of Camas for 3 years working a job that paid me very poorly. Even though I already had American citizenship, it was very hard for me to find a good job in that town. So now the sighting begins. Sorry for taking long. I like to tell all the details and context needed. It was 1996 and I was on a vacation. Don't remember the month or day. I went to a campground in the Uinta Wasatch. I wanted to do the camping I heard many Americans talk about. I went there with a friend named Robert from town. I confess that I'm a very cowardly person. I have no shame in saying that. It's the truth. When he said that he would sleep in a tent, I said no, and I slept in a small cabin there. My friend started to ridicule me for being afraid of animals and stuff. I didn't care. I care for my safety, even though I had a 38 with me. It was night and I was asleep when I woke up to the sounds of my friend battering the front door and desperately screaming for help. I unlocked the door and he jumped inside the cabin and locked the door. I asked what happened to him, only to see him getting up and showing his face with a broken nose and gushing blood everywhere. He told me there was a huge demon outside that punched him in the face. I was not understanding it. A demon punched him in the face? Inside the tent? What the heck was he saying? Then he pointed to the window, fell to the ground, and crawled under the bed. I looked to the window and saw something that made me freeze. I don't know what feeling it felt. It felt like time stopped. My heart stopped. Everything stopped. The shock was that big. In the window, right below the lamp of the porch, there was a gigantic ape man. It was a hairy, long-faced caveman with dark eyes like a gorilla, but had a human nose and chimp-like skin, very light-colored, and a huge philtrum, a large mouth and chin looking directly at my eyes. I don't know how long this whole thing went, because I was extremely shocked. Suddenly, this man-ape started slowly showing his teeth in the most twisted and disturbing smile I'd ever seen. All his teeth were square, no canines or any other type of teeth. All the same thing, only two little sharp teeth close to the cheeks that looked like two little tusks. Then that thing showed its hand, and he opened the window. He opened the window. I grabbed my 38 and saw his face getting even closer and trying to put his arm inside. I fired 2 times and he screamed. That scream was so loud it made me crumble to my knees. That thing vanished in a blink of an eye, and a disgusting stench of rotten meat filled the room. I puked. I couldn't stand that situation. I then locked everything and pulled my friend from under the bed. He had fainted under there. I then called the police. They came in and they woke up Robert. I said a huge animal attacked him and tried to get inside the cabin. I never mentioned a man-ape because I supposed they would not believe us and think that we brawled and I broke his nose. The officers just instructed us to get out of there and take my friend to the closest hospital to treat his nose. That's what we did. Days later, we talked about this again in the town, and I asked him what he remembers that night. He told me he was sleeping and then suddenly he woke up with something pulling him by both his feet out of the tent. He said the thing let go for a second, only for him to get up and hit him in the face and fall again. He said it was too dark to see, and he only had time to desperately run to the cabin and try to enter it. I know this was not a dream because my friend is a witness, and that the broken nose was very real, and the feeling I had looking at that was not a dream. I think that so-called Sasquatch that attacked us that night. He was huge, almost on all fours, just to be at the level of the window. It was probably over 11 feet tall. Anyway, that's it. I'm never going to the woods ever again. I was afraid of the woods before. Today, I'm panicked of it. Feel free to ignore this if you don't believe, but I know it's true, and my friend knows it best. RMSO asks, do you recall the name of the campground you were at? Did you rent a cabin at that campground? Dario responds, I don't recall the name, but it was right beside the Provo River. My friend rented a small cabin to put some things inside. He had planned to spend several days camping and was going to camp kind of far from there. But then I said I wasn't going to tent camp and was going to sleep in the cabin. He then tent camped only a few yards from the cabin because of this. I just talked to my friend on the phone last night. I asked him about more details that he can remember, and he said to me that he thinks the creature missed the punch because the extremely heavy hand only hit him on the nose, and that was enough to send him to the ground. I can imagine my friend would have been a missing person if that Sasquatch had punched him right in the skull. I think my friend was lucky. RMSO responds, yes, your friend is very lucky to be alive and did not become a missing person or never seen nor heard from again. A decade or so before your experience, a couple of young men were camping near the same area you guys had your brutal Bigfoot experience. These two young men were hired to work at a low-budget mine. One of them used a boombox to call blast some suspect Bigfoot vocalizations that were recorded in the Sierra Nevadas. Later that night, their camp was attacked by what they claim were two Bigfoot. Both these guys left all their gear behind, including their clothes, and drove off the mountain down to Camas in such a hurry that they completely destroyed their car. They then called the mine boss from Camas, and when he showed up to help them out, they insisted on quitting and flying back home to Washington. The mine boss and his foreman went back up to the mine the next day and claim there were two different sized giant humanoid-like tracks around the camp. And then they noticed the Coleman camp stove. It appeared to be twisted in almost a figure-8 fashion by one of the creatures, apparently a feat of strength impossible for a human to do. Perhaps one of the creatures that ran these guys out of camp pulled your friend Robert from his tent and broke his nose, then showed you his teeth in a menacing fashion as warning or a threat for you to leave. Hope you all enjoyed this Bigfoot sighting report. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.